Yeah, isn't it amazing when Michigan can keep this game to a 19-foot 9-inch game inside that three-point line? It's all there.
On today's episode, we're talking with Joshua Church, co-founder of Edge Theory Labs, about the benefits of cold therapy for hoopers and athletes young and old, and how it's more approachable than you may realize. So, Joshua, thanks for joining us today. We start everybody out with origin. So tell us a little bit about your company, how you got into it, because I know Robert will echo this as well. We still get some strange looks. So this is definitely something that I think is emerging. But I remember in high school when our basketball team started lifting weights, and people thought that was crazy for basketball players because they thought you're not going to be able to shoot anymore. It's going to mess up your game. That wasn't true at all. I think that this is a piece of, some things that are coming for athletes of the future. So I think that I'm glad to have you here. And I just kind of want to see how you got into this space.
Absolutely. And thanks for having me. Always love sharing and talking more about this because it impacted my life so much, just as recovery has for both of you, it sounds like. So I never was a fan of the cold, quite honestly. Like, I grew up in Southern California here in San Diego. And so, like, I'm a sun creature. I like the sand. I like the warmth. And it wasn't until I heard this crazy guy named Wim Hof on a podcast. Are you guys familiar with Wim Hof, the Iceman, they call him?
Yeah.
The guy's doing like all these crazy feats and doing his breath work. And I'm like, this sounds interesting. His message all around being in control of our own health, strength, and happiness. And that really resonated for me. And as an athlete growing up, and I got banged up through high school football mostly and through sports, and had a bunch of surgeries. And so I'm at the time, probably I'm in my early 20s, and I'm feeling like an old man, and I'm feeling like I don't know how I'm going to continue being active. In fact, it's actually hurting me. Like, I can't play basketball like I used to. I can't lift weights like I used to, and I'm only 23 years old. Like, that's not right. I need to change something if I want to be doing this for the long haul. And so I booked a retreat to go out to Iceland to experience the Wim Hof method for the first hand, and jumped into the freezing cold water and did the breath work. And it just opened up so much for me. And
I got to pause you there. Oh, wait. So did you tell anyone that you were booking a trip to Iceland? Because I mean, that's a whole nother level. Dude, when I tell people I'm getting into an ice bath, that's one thing, but going to Iceland,
next level.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've always said is follow the breadcrumbs, and like you follow these pings of intuition that you get, and you're just like, this seems a little scary. And at the time for me too, it was a massive investment. I'm just like, this seems really scary, but for whatever reason, I'm feeling like this is the next indicated step for me to take. And I would have loved to just do a workshop around. And this is 7 years ago at this point. So there wasn't like a lot. This was very fringe, right? This was very out there. There wasn't workshops around. And so I'd always wanted to go to Iceland and see the Northern Lights. That was on the bucket list for me. And so this thing lined up, and it just felt like, okay, this is too serendipitous to me not to do. So like, I booked the retreat, and I remember calling my mom right after. I'm like, hey, Mom, I'm not sure what I just did, but I think I'm going to Iceland.
There you go. Yes.
You going to join a cult out there? What are you doing? I don't know, to be honest with you, but it feels right. And it really did completely change my life. I'm happy to get into more about the details of that for sure, but it changed the trajectory, and came back super inspired to do this every day and share this with others.
Now, whenever you got there and you had to jump in the water, like, how hard was that for you to do? Like, the first time that you did it, it had to be extremely scary, like mentally. Because that's the big thing about this is the mental side. Like getting to that first plunge or whatever you want to call it when you jumped in the water. What was your experience like with that?
Well, the first time was so tough, especially because one of the leaders of the retreat, he purposefully just told us to go in the water without any instruction. He didn't teach us any of the breathing that we can help do to regulate our nervous system, or any of the warm up to fire up your adrenaline and get your breath aligned, or then the post the warm up, the chapter 3 after, to warm yourself back up. He just said, everybody go ahead into the freezing. Like, we literally chopped blocks of ice off in the lake to be able to go in. He's just like, you're going in for 5 minutes. I'm like, okay. And it was so challenging, and super tense, fighting it like this, and then getting out. I'll never forget, like, it was so painful. And I watched grown men cry, because when you get out, there's something that's called afterdrop, where when you're in the cold, all the blood rushes from your extremities to your core to protect itself. And then when you get out, all that blood flow that's warm here in your core rushes back And that's where you get that inflammation flush. You flush out inflammation, lactic acid. So it's like a cardiovascular flush. But when you're in cold temperatures, when you're in sub-freezing temperatures in Iceland and the air is that cold as well, and you're going in that cold of water at 32 degrees, that's a really extreme on the body. And if you're not present with that process and you're really fighting it, it's like pins and needles. I mean, you can relate when you go in a hot tub when you're skiing or something like that, and it burns. But it's like that to the nth degree. And so I watched grown men cry. I was in so much pain and shivering. I went back in, got in my sleeping bag in the lodge, and I was shivering, like jackhammering for, I'm not even kidding, 30 to 45 minutes until I finally was able to get my body temp back up. And he did that very purposely, because then the next day he taught us and showed us how to breathe, how to approach it with the right mindset. And it was a night and day difference, so much easier, so much better. So that first experience, like you mentioned, it was tough. It was no joke. It was brutal.
Now, was that the first time that you've like tried anything as far as like getting in cold water, or do you have any experience before that?
Besides the trainer filling up trash cans with ice after football practice in high school, that was the first,
okay,
that you just kind of gritted your way through, right?
Yeah.
That was, I think all of us can relate to that, where you're just like kind of grinding your teeth and getting through that. This was the first time doing it in this environment where you're in freezing temperatures already, and you're just that's crazy. Like, that's next level, right? You're going out into the freezing tundra of Iceland in board shorts and going into the lake, and then coming back out into that cold air before going into the warm. So that was the first time I'd done anything like that, for sure.
So you started to hit on some of the benefits there, even though I don't know that you totally sold it with your first story there. But I kind of want to go there then next, because I think that, my analogy, the way I think about it, and I've tried to talk to it, and you'll probably have a better way, is like the first time you show somebody a gym, right? If you let a kid out in a gym, they're going to hurt themselves, right? Because there's weights and there's a way to do the exercises. And so I think that there's a way to describe it, and I'm not doing a very good job. So I'm going to hand it off to you. And just how do you take then those next steps if this is something that you'd be interested in?
Yeah, no doubt. And definitely that first effect is not the best. First story is not the best sales pitch for people to want to get into the ice bath. and like we talked about in the intro as well, I'd love to chat. We can chat later about like how we can actually make it more approachable, because that's the most extreme end of the spectrum, right? Yeah. Going to Iceland, chopping a hole into the frozen lake and going in and coming back out. That's the extreme end of the spectrum. And I like the analogy, like you said, as well, but it's not all or nothing to it. In fact, we see most of the research shows us that you're going to get benefits of cold shock activation. So some of that vasoconstriction happening, and temperatures as mild as 68 degrees, which is not that cold at all. And all of the major studies that people reference that you see on social media, or the major benefits that you're seeing around dopamine increasing and your adrenaline increasing and all of these things happening, they're done at 57 Fahrenheit or 14 Celsius. So like, that's like the ocean in California gets colder than that in the wintertime. So it doesn't have to be that cold to get that much bigger of an effect. But really, once we learn that right approach, and this is what I always love to share with people, is like, that's the first thing, is getting most of the benefit. It starts with the mental benefit of it, because it's all about building this elasticity in our nervous system and learning how we deal with stress. Stress happens to us all the time. And what we're doing with the cold, like we're doing with a high intensity interval training workout, or when we go into the sauna, or we do anything challenging, is that we're doing something called hormetic stress. We're undertaking willful, conscious dose of stress. And what that does, that starts to build this elasticity, and it starts to strengthen our nervous system and our ability to adapt and respond. And so when you can approach the cold in that way of looking that this is a training ground, not only for me just to like, I think most athletes think about it, I'm just got to bite the towel and just let my body do the cardiovascular flush, and I want my legs to go numb, and then I'm going to get out, I'm going to feel better. Yes, that's true. But when you can look at it as a way of, how do I meet this stressor that is cold water? How do I breathe through that? How do I relax into that intensity? How do I surrender into that and let my body open up, let my nervous system relax a bit? That regulation right there, that is where the most training happens. That mental fortitude you build, that elasticity you build for athletes and for just regular people who deal with stress day in, day out, that's where you really see the benefit. So that's the first approach I like to start with, is where is our breath at? Where's our mind at? How are we approaching this before even getting in the cold?
Man, you're hitting on that. And I'm thinking about, standing at the free throw line as a kid, or, the crowd, booing, you're yelling at you, and that like tightness that you can feel, and having that experience in a practiced way to be able to feel that tension, or to feel that kind of, anxiety ramp up in you, and to be able to let it go in a safe space could be really powerful for young athletes.
Doing things that you normally wouldn't do, and it doesn't, like, you're not scared of it. Like you said, the big moment, if you're going to going to the free throw line. Well, it's like anything. Like today, I could give you an example. I didn't want to work out. Like I was like, all right, I'm just gonna get in my tub and I'm gonna do this. I got out. I felt a lot better, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna knock this workout out, and I did it. And there's no way I would have done it if I didn't get in my tub for 10 minutes first. Like it just gave me enough energy. I don't know how you want to say it, but it just made me feel good enough that I was like, all right, I'm gonna do this. And then, I mean, by the time I got done, then I was exhausted again. But it gave me enough to get through it. But it was the mental challenge. Like when I was in there, I was like, okay, if I can do this, I can go work out for 20 minutes. I can go lift weights for 20 minutes.
That's right.
You know, so that's just. But my question, like, just like a personal question, is like, I like to watch TV when I'm in it because it kind of like gets my mind off of it. Right? Is that a negative?
Yep.
Because would it be better if I didn't have something that I actually concentrate on the cold?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, the cool thing is that our body works so intelligently for us, even when we're not trying to. Like right now, our liver is producing enzymes, our stomach is digesting. Like we're not thinking about that. We're breathing. It's all autonomic, and our autonomic nervous system is working. So you could go in the tub and watch TV, and vasoconstriction is still going to happen. You don't have to think, okay, let me send blood flow from my extremities to my core and my kidney to protect itself, right? It's just like, it's going to happen and you're going to go nuts. So that's a beautiful part of the process. So you're still going to be getting benefits while you're in the tub watching TV. And it might feel like it's a little bit easier to take your mind and distract yourself there. But I also think that there's levels to it, and it's an invitation to play with. And that's what I would say for you. I'd invite you to play with what happens if you bring that focus back inward. The same way, if you think about like you're doing a curl, for example, or you're just banging out curls, you're listening to music. What would happen if you were to do that same curl super slowly and just focus on every muscle fiber contracting and expanding? And I'm pretty sure there's probably research done around that and how that leads to even more greater gains with bringing your intention, your focus towards it. So something to play with. It's a very intimate process. It can be a very intimate process, I should say. And for me, that's where I found so many of the benefits and so many more of the mental and emotional, even spiritual benefits from the cold, of going really internal, being very in tune with how am I feeling? Where's my breath? Where is the blood flow feeling? Like, when do I notice that there's tingling or pins and needles in my left foot, inflammation there, or my right foot's going numb? How can I send breath there? And it creates this meditative experience that really can allow you to go inward far, far greater than any other types of practices like that nature. So for you, I'd say play around with it. See what happens when you do. It'll be more challenging at first. It could be more rewarding in the long run, but at the end of the day, you're still going to get the benefits of the vascular flush.
So you're selling me on it a little bit more, but I'm not sure still. How do you get then from the ice in Iceland to your own company? Because Edge Theory Labs, if people are interested, go to their website. They've got explanations about this. It is clearly top notch company that is at the forefront of this stuff. And I think that your approach that you've hit on a little bit is not just the technology behind the cold plunge that you guys sell, but also the sort of all encompassing approach to it, where you can learn more about how to do it and why to do it, and have people almost like a Peloton or something like that
exactly
to jump into this arena.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a full-time director of performance and coaching, and he's really top in the industry when it comes to breath work, cold immersion. He's one of the first group of North America instructors, Wim Hof method instructors out here. And so we put a lot of energy and resources and time into helping to really support people in this, because it's one thing to just sell people a tub. And that's not how that wasn't the intention of starting this. Like, I didn't just say, I want to start a company and I think this is going to be a growing industry, so I want to capitalize on that and make a lot of money. It's like, I had no interest in doing that. It was like, I was kind of forced to, right? And kind of accidentally started this because when I got back from Iceland, I was like, okay, I saw the benefits that the cold was helping me and my cousin. We were training for an Ironman triathlon at the time. We saw like, oh my God, amazing recovery benefits, the mental benefits of everything I just talked about. I was feeling that. I was feeling the same thing that you were saying earlier of like not wanting to do a workout, then going in the cold and being like, I can take this on. I can do anything now. I'm feeling that invincibility. So I'm like, this is an everyday thing for me. Very quickly, living here in Southern California, I got sick of going to 7-Eleven and raiding the ice chest freezer there to get like enough ice bags to get the water cold. And then I'm wasting all this water every single day. And it was starting to have an effect on the water utility bill, and then all the plastic from the ice bags. And I'm like, okay, there's got to be a better way. So I went. I'm like, I'm sold on the benefits of this. I'm willing to go invest, several $1,000s into a solution, and was shocked to see there was nothing on the market that was below $12,000 at the time. It was like you could either just buy $12, $15, $20,000 these big fixed wall tubs that belong in mansions, backyards. But like I live in an apartment balcony. I'm like, how am I? There's not even if I wanted to do that, I couldn't even do this. So then my cousin and I was just like, let's build a chest freezer. Have you guys seen the chest freezers that people hack?
Yeah,
you can get like one of those meat freezers.
I went down that pathway a little bit. I definitely started it, and then I kept hearing, well, you got to be careful because you might electrocute yourself. And I was like, I don't know if that's for me. I'm trying to make myself healthier, and death is not gonna be the end goal.
And that's exactly how this company started, because the next best thing I went after realizing, okay, well, I'm not spending $15,000 on something I can't even, put on my apartment balcony. I went to my cousin. I'm like, hey, can you help me hack a chest freezer? I found a Facebook group with 10,000 people at the time, and all these people hacking these chest freezers for cold water. And it was a little bit, I'm not a DIY guy whatsoever. I'm not a handyman whatsoever. I'm the guy that will hire the handyman to come do the thing. And so I asked my cousin, I'm like, hey, you want to help me build this chest freezer? And he was like, what do you mean? Like, are you going to go hunting? What do you mean build a chest freezer? And I'm like, no, so I can do my ice baths in there. He's like, are you crazy? You're going to electrocute yourself or lock yourself in there on accident? Like, no way. So we thought, okay, let's do a DIY version where we can buy a Rubbermaid tub and hook it up and find an aqua chiller and hook it up to a water pump and have a filter and try to do something DIY. And we did. And we thought, well, I think we can make this better. We can maybe make this portable so we can take it with us to Ironman races, or we can put it on your balcony, right? Make it a little bit more accessible. And so that was the genesis of creating Edge Theory Labs and the Edge Tub. And we were the first to market to bring that portable all-in-one concept, the portable tub that connects to an all-in-one chiller that has the cooling, the heating, the filtration all into one box, one unit. And so that's how it started, really. One
of the big things for you guys, this thing that works so well, is the convenience. Like if you want to get in the tub, you don't have to sit there and put the ice in, wait for it to chill. You can just get up and you can just get in it if you wanted to in the morning, and it's ready to go, right?
That's it. And that's the thing. Like for me this morning, it also, the chiller connects to an app on your phone, so you can set schedules, control the temp remotely, or run certain programming. So you can have it cold in the morning and hot tub at night. And so for me, the value in being able to wake up and know that I got cold, clean water, exactly the temperature that I want, whenever. It's always there ready for me. And so it takes out that guesswork. It takes out the resistance around, I want to do an ice bath, but I got to wait for it to cool down, or I got to go buy ice. Like, too much resistance, and you're not going to do it as much. So to know, like, I wake up in the morning, the only excuse for me not going in is me. It's only me versus me now. Like, I've eliminated everything else. And for me to be able to, like, this morning, I went in and I had a lot of resistance, but I'm like, you know what? Got a big day, got a lot of calls, got a lot of things going on. Like, I'm gonna gift myself this opportunity to go in, and it just makes it you versus you, which I think a lot of athletes, especially hoopers, can relate to. It's you versus you every time. It's the game that's going on between your ears right here. And so it takes out all the guesswork and the heavy lifting. So it's always ready for you. And that's such a game changer, because then you do it more.
All right. I asked then, what's your protocol? And then to rewind a little bit, where would you start at if you were just getting into it?
Great question. Let's start with, where would you start? I recommend, and we have access to, I'm happy to share the links as well, but we have like a guided audio for recording for beginners who want to do their first full immersion. And I recommend starting at 55 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 minutes. 2 minutes at 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Not that long, not that cold. Still cold enough to elicit a shock factor for most people, and certainly to get the benefits, and long enough to receive the benefits as well, but in a short enough dose. It's what we call the minimum effective dose. So 2 minutes at 55 degrees Fahrenheit. This is also part of the reason why we love the Edge Tub, is because you can set that temperature of 55 degrees. It's a little bit harder to guess with ice. You got to have the right ice. It can go too cold. It can be too hot, right? But an ice bath, it doesn't necessarily need to be ice. Like, if it has ice form, then it's probably going to be very cold. It's going to be in the high 30s. So you don't need it to be that cold. So I recommend starting there to get a sense of, before going down deeper and lower temps, my preference is always to see people, and when I'm coaching people on this, is to have them go full immersion first. Because if you go full immersion, like a lot of athletes and people just lower body, that's good, and you can stay longer if you do just your lower body. But when you go full body, and you get your arms in there, you get your core underneath, you get up to your neck. Now you're getting your lymph nodes underneath the water as well. It's just going to be a full lymphatic flush, a full vascular flush, and it's going to be more challenging as well. So I always prefer people master the full immersion and the regulation at the more milder temps for shorter temps first, and then start to increase the duration, and then start to decrease the temperature from there. So that's kind of the starting protocol that I'd recommend. And then really the answer in terms of like what my protocol is, it depends. It's a big fat it depends answer. It depends on what I'm doing. It depends on what I'm doing it for, when I'm doing it, and what the goal is. So we talk a lot at Edge about this concept of a goal-oriented approach for cold water immersion, because depending on what your goal is, how you're going to use the tub may differ. If I'm wanting in the morning to get a quick pick me up, a wake me up, I'm going to go more likely on a colder temp, full body immersion, and I don't need to be in there for that long. I'll jump in, dunk my head, and I'll regulate my breath. I'll count to 10 breaths, which ends up being about 90 seconds, maybe 10 slow breaths. And then I get out and I got my charge. I got my cold shock. I feel lit up. But if I just crush, like on Saturday when I'm going to go run, do a 10-mile run for part of this training, when I finish that run, I'm going to want to do a little bit of a deeper cooling. So I'm going to do a more mild temp in the high 40s or low 50s, and I'm going to be in there for more like 7 minutes. And I might start with just my lower body, and then I might bring my upper body in as well to finish the flush. So all these different things depend on what your goal is and what you're looking to achieve.
Do you always dunk your head, or no? I just never dunk my head. Like I always do the full immersion, but I just don't have that dunk initially. Is that a thing?
The dunk is good, man. Here's the dunk. I want you to try. The dunk is good, man. It's like it's the dessert, man. It's the icing on the cake. The dunk just leaves you it's so good, because the dunk really forces you to regulate, and also getting your face and your head. Like we know that we have so many neurons and endings nerve endings that are in our head, right, and our hands and our face. And so getting the exposure, even for a brief minute, is vastly beneficial. But one of the protocols that I like that I want you to try is, and I like to do my head dunk when I first get in, because it just shocks you that much more and then forces you to regulate. So I'll get in, I'll do, like, I call it the Oreo, right? Where like I get in and I do the head dunk, and then I come up and it just shocks the body. Okay, forces you to regulate. Okay, cool. Adapt. Once I get that breath regulation back. I'm like, okay, a couple deep breaths. I'm going to dunk again, come back up, regulate. And that's the middle part of the Oreo. And then I'm going to do the last head dunk before I get out, get back to my breath, and then get out. So you're doing 3 head dunks over the course of, and you can do your own timing on that. You can say, I'm going to do 3 minutes, head dunk at the beginning, head dunk halfway through, and then a head dunk at the end. Or you can just do it based on breath. So like go in, head dunk, get back to your breath, and then head dunk again, get back to your breath, head dunk again, back to your breath, out. So something fun to try.
I'll try it.
I'm curious about then just some stories of people that you guys have helped so far. Cause I'm sure at this point, the cool thing about your business is that you're able to actually change people's lives. Like your life was changed. Like this is something, it's hard for me to diffuse that initial like skepticism in people. And I think the more stories I hear, the easier it is for me to explain why it's important. Cause it's easy to explain the scientific benefits once you know them.
Right.
But people don't necessarily connect to like adipose tissue and, vagus nerve, right? It's just not totally the way that we talk. It's not the vernacular, but when we hear about people and, where they were when they started as opposed to where they were after they got into it, I think that can be powerful.
Yeah, definitely. Oh man. And this is the most rewarding and my favorite part about this work that we're doing and we're on. Like we got an email not too long ago from a gentleman who's a veteran who is battling with PTSD, and he sent an email, and I have the screenshot. It always gives me chills every time I retell the story or reread the email. And he says how he's been he's a war veteran, and he's been battling with PTSD for over a decade. And he said that he did our cold immersion, he did our tub, and followed one of our guided protocols. And he said for the first time in 10 years, he finally saw some relief from his symptoms of PTSD. Like, holy shit, that's nuts, right? Yeah. Like that's an extreme end of the spectrum of the story, but just to show the power of what that regulation can do and being able to help your nervous system and being able to help overcome stress. Like if you're someone that's stressed out and you want to feel a little bit less stressed out or understand how you can manage your stress better, then what an amazing application for that. So that's one that I always love to just be able to reference because of how powerful it can be on that end of the spectrum. We have stories all the time of people doing it consistently, losing weight, because you're going to be burning calories to warm yourself back up after. So people losing weight, people increasing their activity through the roof, people feeling happier, less anxious, less stressed, less depressed. So there's something for everybody. And that's why, for me, one of my big metrics and goals of measurement for success is getting asses in tubs. How many asses can we get into a tub? How many people can we get into a tub to experience it and to try it? Because once you try it, and it just takes a little nudge for most people, like people are interested and most people are open, especially if you're like, it doesn't have to be that cold, 55, you can do that. Then you get them to try it. And once you feel that, like, whoa, the feeling, that afterglow, that warmth that your body produces when you get out, and that feeling of closing a dopamine loop and doing something challenging, and then coming out on the other side of it and feeling accomplished and feeling that truly, that high, that registered high that you feel naturally, you can't unfeel that, and you can't fake that. And so once someone can feel that, then they're like, okay, maybe there's something here after all. So talk is cheap at a certain point, and that's why I just love to get people and facilitate first timers through. It's my biggest joy.
At what age is it safe to get in the ice tub? Because I have an 8-year-old, and he's been in mine.
Right?
Like, he doesn't. I mean, he's been in it for like, a couple minutes here and there. Like he plays a lot of sports. So I was like, well, if you're sore, just jump in for a couple of minutes. I mean, it's the mental part of it's obviously hard for a younger kid. But is there any scientists or science part of it that could possibly hurt a younger kid by getting into it? Or
that's a great question. I don't think it's very well researched yet. There's still so much research to be done in this space. So there's not. I don't know. I don't recall there being any studies on younger participants, probably for good reasons, like doing studies on younger kids.
Well, I get that
usually. But what I'll say is, it all comes down to someone's choice to get in and willingness to get in. I know so many people whose kids do it. I know so many people from a young age whose kids do it. From a physiological standpoint, it's not like there's anything because their brain's less developed that it might affect. There's nothing like that, or they don't possess certain biomechanical processes that we do. In fact, younger children actually do better in the cold, because what you were referring to earlier is this concept of brown adipose tissue, or brown fat, which is an insulation factor that keeps us warm in the cold. Now, babies have a very high percentage of brown adipose tissue, or brown fat, because babies don't have a shivering mechanism. It takes a certain amount of time for human babies to develop a shivering mechanism. Like when we get cold, we can shiver. And what the shivering does is the contraction of our muscles warms us up and provides a metabolic value. But when you're a little child, for whatever reason, you don't have that. And so you have a high stores of brown fat that can help you to keep warm in cold climates and survive, right? It's also these survival instincts. So we have these survival mechanisms built into us that will keep us safe in that. So for your son and for any young kids out there that want to try, I'm a big fan. It's obviously up to the parent to decide, but if the kid is interested and is open-minded to trying it and is able to breathe through it, then there's no harmful effects that have been shown or been researched that I would be concerned of. I'll just add on there where it gets, for anybody for that matter, for kids or just any adults, I'm always very, very sensitive. You never want to force someone to do this. If they're going in and they're anxious and stressed and they're being forced in or peer pressured in, then that can be a recipe for disaster. That can be a recipe for them having a bad experience. Now, thankfully, I haven't seen anything terrible happen as a result, but they can have a very bad experience, or they can lock up, or they can freeze up, or just never want to do it again. So I always remind people, it's a choice. Make it a choice. If you feel like you're empowered, if you're stepping into it, like, I want to do this, I'm ready to do this, stepping into that place of power, you're going to have a good experience. But if you're not, or you're being forced in by someone else or peer pressured by someone else, then it's not going to be a good experience for that person.
Makes sense.
Yeah, if they're going to peer pressure anybody, they better be buying a ticket to Iceland and jumping in.
Yeah, that's right.
So
that's right.
What do you think about the temperature? Do you think that the colder, like the less amount of time's better, or what's your thoughts on that? If you're going in, like I usually go in about 50 degrees for about 10 minutes, full body.
Solid. That's
like,
great.
Do I need to go colder than that,
dosage.
or should I just stick with that?
No, that's great. That's a solid protocol. That's a nice deep cooling. It's fun to experiment with different temps, and like it's all, and part of the name of Edge Theory Labs is this laboratory, right? Like we are this laboratory for experimentation and exploration. So that's a lot of the way that I approach this and we approach this, because everybody's different, everybody's unique, and and this is and things are going to work certain, like you want to find your kind of rhythm with how this works for you and how your body responds. So I'm a big fan of just experimenting. Like, that's great. If that works for you, keep doing that. You're getting full benefit from that for sure. If you want to experiment with, like, it'd be cool to experiment with, like, what does doing colder for a shorter duration look like? Or what does doing a little bit warmer for a longer duration look like? Like, play around with it. There's no hard and fast rules around this. So, but that 50 degrees for 10 minutes, that's a nice full body immersion. That's a deep cooling, and you're getting some serious benefits from that.
You mentioned the app earlier. Is there a way for you, and then the lab part of it, is there a way for you to collect some anonymous metadata to do some study about like what temperature is the most, used, or what length of time, I don't know, way to document and kind of share some of that out in sort of I know it's not a total research based way, but almost like a
game plan,
exactly.
A game plan or some kind of plan to follow maybe as a beginner, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's a great thought. It's definitely part of the vision that we have. One of the things we are working on right now is doing peer-reviewed research studies. We're working with we have our tubs just getting ready to get installed into Whoop, Whoop tracker, Whoop Labs out in Boston, and so we're looking at doing some research with them as well to be able to track some of those biomarkers and track that against certain protocols at different temperatures to be able to see sweet spots and be able to do it, because we've got thousands of people out there using these edge tubs, so being able to capture their data and their experience with it is big, and part of that's in our community space that we're constantly building out, and we're starting to drop new packs of guided audio immersions, guided protocols of like, here, try this one. Here's one over here. Here's one that's going to optimize for post-workout recovery. Here's a pre-workout performance boost. Here's one for this. So it's something we're constantly building out, but I definitely love that idea and that vision of being able to track the data as well, to be able to see what's actually working.
All right, we know you got to get out of here. We appreciate your time today. We thought we'd have a little fun wrapping up here. Everybody loves a draft, so we're going to draft our favorite recovery tools. We'll give you the first pick, since it may be obvious or maybe not, but we're going to give you the first pick in the draft here. We'll go a couple rounds.
Okay, so specific product.
Yeah. If you've got them, and then we'll go.
I do. I'm actually this is gonna be a hot take, and I'm not gonna go edge tubs number one.
Oh man,
I might get I'm gonna say number one overall is a company called Dream Recovery.
Okay.
Our buddy Todd Anderson, he's actually an investor with us as well. An awesome guy. Had to make an intro as well. He's like a sleep and recovery expert, and he has this sleep eye mask and mouth tape for nasal breathing when you sleep, in the eye mask. Nice. And the biggest recovery and performance tool out there is sleep. Wow. And I've noticed that massively in my life. So I'm drafting sleep as number one.
Nice.
And my boy Todd's Dream Recovery products as number one overall.
Okay,
Robert, I didn't expect that.
I know. I love it.
I mean, it's right now, probably the Cold Pledge is probably my number one as far as go-to. I mean, that's probably what I would take it second.
All right, he's taking it second. I actually would have gone that way too, and it seems crazy.
It's weird, yeah.
Because I have literally tried sauna. I've tried the percussion massage thing. I've got the Normatec boots. I've done mobility training, so I've done a bunch of these. I think I would have gone that with my pick, but I'm going to go mobility exercise, just some kind of protocol to increase your mobility. Like, find something that works for you. I think it goes in that it depends type of thing. Finding what makes you feel better, but increases your like hip and ankle mobility. I had so many problems with my back because my ankles were locked up and I had no flexibility in my hips, and it was just causing all kinds of other problems. And as soon as I started on that pathway, that's kind of what got me to all these other things.
I love that.
All right, we'll go around one more time. What's your second on the board?
Well, now that ice bath is off the board, I would say sauna. I'm taking sauna. That's part of my stack for sure. And we hit sauna pretty aggressively over here. We have a sauna in our facility here in our labs in our HQ, and we got a couple cold tubs set up. Sauna. We got the Normatec. We got all the toys over here. But the sauna, we do this super step up protocol, which is Huberman talked about this on his pod one time, which shows a 14-fold increase in growth hormone through doing this protocol. So it's 30 minutes in at above 175, so hot temp. So 30 minutes in, 10 minutes out, and you do that 4 times, so 4 quarters of 30 minutes. So it's 2 hours of full heat exposure at the end of the day. It's like a trip. It's like a psychedelic journey by the time you're done with it. It's nuts. But doing those high temp sauna recovery sessions are just so good because it's similar to the cold tub where it's both recovery and performance, because you're getting into that stress pocket where you're like, all right, I'm ready to get out now. And that's where the training really starts. How can I slow down my heart rate? How can I just be in this intensity of the moment and be calm and composed? And then you get out and you feel so amazing after. So I'm taking sauna next.
Is that like a once a week thing?
No, that's like a once a quarter thing.
Okay, I was like, 2 hours that's a big amount of time.
That's like a couple times a year. Like you're feeling, you're gonna get giddy up for it.
I'll have to try it then. Mine probably be compression boots, because I played a lot of basketball, and sometimes I'm not as motivated to get in the ice tub as we talked about mentally, and the compression boots is definitely an easier option as far as mentally, just to put them on. And you can just sit there and watch TV or whatever and just let them go to work.
I love those too, but I do feel like sometimes the amount of time that they take and then the setup. So I'm going to go with mine for the percussive massage, just the massage gun. It always feels good too. So that's like, you can't lose, again, some of these things that are hard, that's really easy. So, I mean, that's definitely, one that I reach for often.
That's definitely my go-to when I wake up and my back's stiff. Like, I'll just get the gun out and I'll work my back out. And usually, I mean, it's usually instant relief for me anyway. So,
yeah, that's good stuff.
All right, man. Well, I so appreciate your time. If you got anything to plug besides Edge Theory or stuff that might be coming out or people should be looking out for. And then if there's a place, I'm kind of curious just for myself, there's a place in the Midwest for people to check out Edge Theory tubs. I was up in Indianapolis and I've been looking now. This is definitely something I've been doing on my trip. So I went to Nashville and then to Indianapolis, and I've looked for cold plunge studios when I'm in the city, because we're in a small town, Jasper, Indiana. So nothing here at the moment. But I did find a couple, one in Indianapolis, one in Nashville, and they're using competitors cold plunge. So any place that you've got around here.
I would have to check. I know there's definitely a couple, but it's something there's such a link if you've got it. For good reason. Yeah, definitely. I know on the West Coast there's just so many popping up in every little town center, which is awesome, and I think it's making its way. So and in terms of plugging, just what we got cranking at Edge right now is we're really excited to continue sharing. So be sure to give us a follow on Instagram, myself as well, at Joshua Dean Church on my IGs. Best place for people to reach out, be in touch. Always love connecting with other like-minded people, and just excited to continue the journey.
All right, man.
And it was great, man. It's great talking to you.
Thank you for listening to the 19.9 podcast. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, make sure you do. And while you're at it, leave us a rating or review. 5 stars only, like the basketball camp. We also have links to all of 19.9 social media so you never miss a release. Until next time,